Okay, so welcome everybody to our this month's webinar. It's all about Copilot and AI, and Copilot with lots of different CRM systems and tools as well. So if that's what you're expecting, you're in the right place. If it's not, then please stay, because we hope it's going to be interesting. What we're going to, well, first I'll introduce the hosts that we have. So we'll be first hearing from Matt Dunphy, who's an independent non-profit specialist for many years, like many of us as well. And then after that, my colleague Jeremy Jaley, and then myself and Chris will be covering some specific aspects around Copilot and some demonstrations around that. Why are you in the right place to listen to this? Well, a lot of what we're going to be talking around is tools we've been using for many years. There's obviously been a lot of recent fuss about AI, but we started our first projects in 2022-23. And we'll be showcasing a little bit of what we've done, but particularly around our Smart AI suite, which we entered 7 categories in the MEMCOM Awards this year, and we won 7 awards, which is great. So what you'll be seeing today is now award-winning stuff, as well as producing great results and ROI. So we'll be talking a little bit more about that as we go along. In terms of the session, we are recording everything, and therefore we'll submit those recordings to you via email, probably on Thursday, as we do each month. Any questions, please use the chat box, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end where we'll take questions raised today. But we've also got a load of questions that have been sent before, as well as part of our emailing. And yeah, so there we go. So what we're going to cover today. So firstly, from Matt, we'll have a scene setting, introductions, and talking around typical use cases for AI and so on. Then Jeremy will cover what Microsoft's take on this is. So their range of AI tools, where they're appropriate, in which different applications they sit in. Then Chris and I will be covering a demonstration area of Copilot and its different guises. And then, as I say, we'll have a summary and a Q&A after that. So if I advance the slides, I'll now hand over to Matt.
Okay, everybody, so I'm here for the primer on today's topic, and then I'll move progressively over to Jeremy, who's going to show you what, as Steve says, Microsoft is doing in terms of its AI roadmap. But to set the scene here, as ever, we want AI and other tools to be solving long-standing problems, and as you've heard already, there is a real focus on Microsoft Copilot today. So let's start there. If we talk about the various things that AI and emerging tools, including Copilot, should be solving, you see them on screen here. They haven't changed. They are long-standing problems, but certainly the kind of nature of them has changed, let's say, in the last 5 years. So we all know membership expectations are high. What I would say is most different there is people are getting used to AI. So, some of the features they're seeing elsewhere, they're asking the question, well, do you do this in my membership body? And of course, they're always going to want faster, easier service. Thinking about your teams, certainly since the pandemic and in our recent economic constraints in the UK, they are under more strain, and AI truly is providing a platform of tools that really will make a difference in terms of their efficiency and even their well-being. And we do know in the sector that many organizations, even if you're on modern CRM, are still struggling with integrating other systems. So AI is a real game changer around actually data insights, putting many data sources together. And actually, many of you are probably asking questions about your structure. Is this the right structure for us as an organization moving forward? Do we have the right technical and people frameworks in place? So AI is really affecting how we make those decisions coming up. If you've been on a Smart Impact webinar before, you'll know this diagram. It's kind of an explanation of the need and the benefit of having an integrated platform, so several systems all modernized and talking to each other. If you like, the simple point to make about these large language models, other AI-based tools, Copilot being in focus today is that they are powering, and being embedded more and more in the other systems and in our platform. Why should this matter? Well, it is helping us more and more with the various needs of our stakeholders, both internal and external. And just if you are a leader or you're talking to your other leaders right now, just, some kind of reasons why now is the time. If you're a data rich organization, but your quality, underneath it has questions against it, AI is really bridging that gap in terms of still gaining, as I said, that key data insight. It is, as I've already said, but I'll reiterate, a good conversation to be having with leaders. It will provide shifts of the dial in terms of productivity and efficiency. We know we've been going after those gains for a long time in the sector. And finally, Jeremy will attest to this in his section. Microsoft is industrializing AI. There's just so much of it there. And a point we'd make is if you've arrived at this webinar and you're not a Dynamics 365 user, you can still take away some of the use cases we're talking about and talk to your supplier or do some research on your CRM. You can use this no matter what stack you've got in terms of your technology, and that includes Copilot. So just a quick note on that, if you don't have Dynamics 365, you're using Copilot, you're probably going to be using it with your Microsoft Office apps. There's lots of productivity hacks or ways to move forward there. And then just note down today, whether you're using a different CRM and you just want to talk about the various things you could do where you are, or of course, if you're considering a move, and indeed you want to move to Dynamics, to prove the point the other way, Copilot is and will feel more integrated with your entire system set if you're using Dynamics 365. And I say again, the work that Microsoft is doing on Dynamics to actually add more AI features is really impressive and at scale. So really interesting topic. That for me, this is about behaviors. How are you starting to use Copilot to solve problems which might represent a gateway to actually more AI adoption? So there's kind of three pillars here, and we'll get your view in a poll in a moment on these. So if we talk about productivity gains, your behavior right now as an organization might be using Copilot or other tools to draft content, edit it. The natural gateway there and the step forward is to start to trust it more and more to make suggestions about action. If we think in the middle there about gaps in data problems, anomalies, Copilot and other tools are really good at highlighting errors or inconsistencies. You start to trust AI in that way and enrich your data. You're going to feel more comfortable using it as a forecasting tool. And perhaps a more moot topic in the sector, if you're using these natural language queries, dear AI, can you help me solve this problem right now? The more you trust that and you see the decision making in response, the more you'll probably start to trust automated decision making, particularly the use of AI agents. So we really view Copilot as a gateway to greater adoption. And then I'm just going to share a couple of examples with you, and Jeremy will have more coming about the AI stack with Microsoft. But we really want you to go away today with sort of 3 or 4 different areas of your business and how you can actually improve them with Copilot and other tools. So let's look at this in focus. And I will say that Copilot stroke, AI-based tools in a CRM. Let's think about your CPD for a moment. You may have a brilliant CPD framework and process every year. What we tend to see is that struggle to engage with the many subgroups of your learners. And also we do see the kind of 5% audit factor. You can't audit everyone to make sure your standards are high. You pick a small dip sample. So what is AI doing? It's allowing a lot more personalization and a lot more kind of nudge learning around things people can explore in terms of their CPD with you. It's banking CPD activity in an easier way so people don't have to manually, write their records every year. And it's giving your teams, greater data insight about, who's being successful and who might need more support. A really common challenge in the sector with organizations is either in spreadsheets or systems having multiple data sources, inconsistencies. We're constantly going after that single version of truth. If you see on the right here, AI is really helping us consider different data sources, their inconsistencies, merge them together and kind of give us back a clear picture, or at least clear options on which seems to be the latest version of truth if we've got ourselves into some trouble there. So we would be doing that manually ad nauseum before AI existed. Really like this one, the leaky bucket renewal cycle. Again, I don't denigrate if you've got a really good renewal cycle. What we tend to see is like, spray and pray comms or several structured trigger emails to try and win people for the next year, and lower insight about who truly is at risk of lapsing. AI now, again, is giving us more granular engagement scoring, so we can see who our at-risk cohort is. And then that's given us more ways to personalize responses and contact so that people feel warm and they will renew with us. And kind of an extension of that then is, we do want people to upgrade through the various tiers of our membership. We do need at certain occasions to win people back. So really that process needs to be quick and easy, as I mentioned up front. And we want that actually to be more self-service led. So AI is really helping there. We're giving more workflows through AI, more really helpful recommendations about why it's useful to upgrade or to come back. And then certainly it's almost like the person who's there half writing the form knowing you're busy. We can pre-fill forms with AI and make sure people move through the various stages to rejoin quickly, and give them, again, some notes about the benefits of doing that. So there's a lot more flexibility and personalization of the contact, and it is also just automating operations. So very quickly, this is going to help with the rest of the session. I think Chris is going to pop this up in your chat. So, which of these three key pillars, these three key areas, have you come onto the webinar today saying that would make the biggest difference for us? So we've got productivity there and gains in that place. We've got data insight, or maybe if you've got lots of data anomalies and you want some greater messaging from your data, and of course decision-making support. So I think, Chris, maybe if you set it off and let me know when it looks like we've had all the responses.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, it's looking to be somewhat neck and neck between productivity and data insights. They sort of flop in between each other. Interestingly, nothing coming in from decisions, so not looking to use AI for decision making, but productivity and data insights, 57% for productivity, 43% for data insights.
Got you. And I love that because it kind of proves the point I was making earlier. I think as a team, we will look at all of these places of productivity and data insight with you today. Don't be alarmed or afraid about the decision-making support, particularly with agentic AI. There's ways to set these things up where the machine is making decisions, but in a trusted, reliable way based on what you've fed it. So not surprised, but certainly, and maybe we can highlight some of the value of decision making today as well. I'll leave this up for a moment just for you to read. And again, it proves the point we're making today with Copilot, with other AI tools, these use cases or others. There are many, many ways that this will help you solve problems. Now it's just about embedding it in the right way. And I think that probably leads me to hand back towards Jeremy and the Microsoft AI vision.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Jeremy Jaley, and I'm Business Development Lead here at Smart Impact. Thanks, Matt, for that great introduction. One of the objectives of today's session is to provide an introduction to the latest and greatest tools that Smart Impact is using with our clients to unlock AI transformation. So to tee this up, and because Smart Impact is first and foremost a Microsoft CRM partner, I want to spend a few minutes just focusing on Microsoft's vision for AI, where it's heading, what's coming next, and why we believe this should be of interest to professional membership organizations. We've drawn quite heavily on Microsoft's own collateral and resources to prepare this, and it feels particularly timely because Microsoft has just released its 2025 Wave 2 for Dynamics 365 and Power Platform. That means it's just released a whole slew of new functionality into the ecosystem. So there's been a huge amount of focus on the topic of Microsoft AI tools throughout October. And when I'm done, I'm going to hand over to Steve and Chris, who will demo some of the latest and greatest tools so that you can see them in action. So firstly, Microsoft always makes the point that AI isn't about technology for technology's sake. It's about results, notwithstanding what Matt said about them really industrializing the industry. It's results that they're interested in, because used well, AI enriches employees' experiences, it cuts out repetitive and often dull busy work, and it can fuel creativity. So for membership bodies, it can transform engagement with members, offering more personalised communications, faster responses, and new ways to connect with the diverse range of stakeholders that you're no doubt interacting with. And it can reshape business processes, automating tasks like renewals or events management, and enabling smarter day-to-day workflows. And we found that even a small infusion of AI into most business processes can make a big difference to their overall effectiveness. And finally, and I think particularly importantly for professional bodies, trade association, trade unions, who all have a vital role in communicating best practices in their sectors, it helps organisations to lead on innovation, because by leading by example, by adopting AI and then connecting dots for and with your stakeholders, you're able to learn about and demonstrate the potential that AI has when it's used responsibly and strategically. You know, these outcomes don't happen automatically. For success, organisations need to be strategic, people-focused and deliberate. And this means thinking about where AI can genuinely add value, which of your teams are ready and able to innovate, and how to stay member and service centric in what you deploy. In fact, what we found at Smart Impact throughout our work in 2023, 2024 and 2025 is that adopting AI is as much about change management as anything else. If you're asking people to work in new ways, be that your staff managing your business processes or members accessing services, you need to communicate clearly, demonstrate benefits and quick wins, and avoid an "if we build it, they will come" mindset for these tools. And this is very much echoed in Microsoft's approach to AI, and they're in the process of working with their biggest customers to demonstrate the impact that well implemented and well thought through AI can deliver to businesses. And there's lots and lots of case studies out there that can kind of fuel that. And at Smart Impact, we've initiated our Smart AI service to support organisations undertaking this transition. So in terms of technology and product development, Microsoft's roadmap is focused on 3 priorities, which guides everything they're doing. So firstly, they're building lots of agents, and building agents that actually undertake processes, not just generative assistants that answer questions or write copy. And they're building loads of these, often with the intention of demonstrating the art of the possible, to help organisations do their own thinking about what they can do and where they could take AI tools in the future. Secondly, they're rethinking the architecture of all their apps. And for technologists, this is probably one of the most interesting areas, as AI is driving a real paradigm shift in how people interact with software and applications. In the past, humans really had to go looking for insights and information in the systems that they use, be that searching through files, trawling through emails, looking up records in CRM and databases. But increasingly, through interconnectivity with files, messages and data, you can find and surface those insights to users proactively, which fundamentally changes how you should think about software and software development and user experience. And Microsoft is thinking really hard about this and working out ways to bring information to users that guides action and next steps. And I think that this is an area where there is going to be a huge amount of innovation coming thick and fast over the next few years, which is really quite exciting. So finally, they're rethinking collaboration. So using AI to handle meeting notes, follow-ups, actions, and updating systems of record enables people to spend more of their time on meaningful work. And so there's a lot of focus on using AI to support and streamline collaboration, building AI into their collaboration apps. And I think this is also obviously building on Microsoft's leadership in this space with Outlook and Teams. In terms of products, you'll probably be relieved to hear that I'm not planning to talk specifically about every app on this screen, but Microsoft is building AI capabilities into all its apps and product categories. And I suspect this is probably where a lot of the people on the session today will be seeing Microsoft AI most prominently. New features appearing in the tools you're using every day that promise AI services. And they're also building AI tools into the apps that partners like Smart Impact use to configure CRM, build automations, build out reports and analytics for our clients, which obviously makes it quicker and easier for us to support what organizations are doing. And they're building lots of developer level tools to make coding and app development easier, safer and faster. I do want to briefly highlight three AI specific tools that are particularly relevant to today's session. So Microsoft 365 Copilot is probably the first Microsoft AI tool most people will experience because it's built right in to the apps that you're using every day. So in Outlook, in Teams, in Word, in Excel and PowerPoint. And it's connected to your organization's data, which means it can summarize member meetings, draft communications, prepare reports, or pull insights from documents and emails. And for membership organizations, this has transformative potential because staff can spend less time chasing information and more time engaging with members, planning campaigns, and analyzing impact. And obviously, because it's fully integrated and secure within Microsoft 365, you also get the benefits of AI innovation with the security and compliance controls that your organization needs. Copilot Studio takes AI a step further. This is Microsoft's agent builder, and it allows organizations to create their own AI assistants without writing code. So using this, you can securely connect to databases, your websites, a members portal, and design agents that help members to renew, register for events, find their next CPD course, find training resources, and you can even deliver these tools outside working hours. But for staff, it's also really valuable because you can automate internal processes, build co-pilots that support specific teams or specific functions. And it's a high impact way to bring AI innovation closer to the people who use it every day. This one's a little bit more technical, but Azure AI Foundry is where larger or more data-driven organizations can innovate with AI with confidence. It provides a single platform to build, manage and govern AI models. So whether that's fine-tuning existing LLMs or developing your own specialized solutions. And for membership organizations, this means you can start exploring advanced use cases. So things like predictive analytics for renewals, automated CPD tracking, or using AI-assisted assessment processes. But obviously, again, in that well-governed environment where you've got full control over data, security, and compliance. So look, to wrap up, the shift to AI is obviously already underway. 76% of knowledge workers are already using it, and studies have shown that this is leading to significant time savings in businesses. For instance, the UK government recently calculated that civil servants can save around 10 hours a month by using AI tools. And for this reason, a Microsoft survey recently found that 84% of CEO and business leaders are planning to introduce AI-based products and services into their offerings, meaning it's not really a question of if, but when organizations start to do this, which obviously has a competitive dimension to it. And rather obviously as well, this is why AI is such a big part of Microsoft's strategy and roadmap, and why it dominates their communication and tech agendas. So as you're thinking about what's next, approach AI strategically and confidently. Make sure you have a technology stack and technology partner who can support you with innovation. And for us, the Microsoft offering is extremely compelling. And it's a great place to start, particularly if you're already using Microsoft tools to manage your data or your daily workloads. So thank you, and I'll hand over to Steve and Chris to start looking at what this actually looks like in practice.
Okay, so this is the main body of the the presentation today. So we're going to have a little bit of a intro from me, and then Chris is going to be going through some demonstrations of the various tools within the Copilot suite. So I thought I'd start off by describing how we use it. We've developed something called the Smart AI Suite, which we started in late 22, early 23. It's a set of assistants that are both technology agnostic, so they'll work with Copilot and ChatGPT and so on and so on. And secondly, they can sit right across your organization, so they aren't reliant on your CRM system or any particular technology or data sources. They're productivity tools that can sit right across the organization in the areas that you can see on the screen. So, you know, department by department. And I'll just to explain a little bit about them. They are optimized tools that all of our users can operate, but also enhance themselves, because what we do is we train people on how to build really effective prompts using our graft methodology, which is goals, roles, audience, format, and tone. That's the way to specify you get the same results each time that are tailored to you. And on the top right-hand corner, you'll see a circle with 5 rectangles, and those are specialist core documents, we call them. And that means we can take our assistants from organization 1 to 2 to 3, and just by changing those 5 core documents to represent you, your customers, your tone of voice, and so on and so on, they all change their behavior to your organization. So it comes out in your format with your styles and your branding, understanding your products and services. So it's a really good efficiency tool set that means you can start in as quickly as 15 days, and it's tailored to you. You don't get the hallucinations that you'd get in general AI use. So that's a little bit about the Smart AI suite and where it's positioned across departments. If you want to understand a few more use cases amongst those departments, then we've got what we call a cheat GPT sheet, but you can download it from that QR code there. So I'll leave this on for a little bit so you can scan that if you wish. This is a couple of sides of A4, just gives you loads and loads of use cases. And as we'll come on to in a minute, the use cases are important. A lot of people try and adopt Copilot just by using what's embedded within their tool, which is, you know, in Office or in Dynamics, if you use Dynamics and so on. It's untrained, it doesn't know you, and therefore you're going to get quite patchy results, even if you get useful results. What these do is give you really good use cases for that. And if you're going to evaluate Copilot or other AIs, we always advise you to pick some specific use cases and trial them properly, train them properly, and then you'll see what AI really can do for you. And that's what we've done with our customers. So by all means, download that. It's all free on our website. The first customer we put our suite into was the Fire Industry Association. And this has been running for 2 years now, and this is the organisation we won quite a lot of awards with, or one of the 2 organisations. But we implemented about 50 assistants in there, and the results you can see on the left. They became massively more efficient, 25% more efficient within the first year, and for an organisation about 25 people, they saved 1,500 work days, which they were able to redeploy to, you know, basically member services, developing new products and services, and providing a lot more engagement and member care. So it was very effective in terms of them being able to redirect their organization, get a lot closer to their members, grow their membership, and do a lot more training delivery as well. So for instance, the development time or rewrite time for courses went from about a month to 4 days using these assistants, which is a phenomenal increase. So that resulted in their turnover increasing by about £1 million over the first 18 months. The product itself, or the project itself, was very low 6 figures. So you can see there's a great ROI there. And in addition to that, one thing that people are often surprised about with AI is this resulted in a massive increase in staff morale. FIA was a lot of hardworking, enthusiastic, very keen people that were hamstrung by lots and lots of manual work and workarounds and patches and so on. And this enabled them to become a lot more productive and therefore focused on a lot more of the creative and thinking side of things rather than the doing side of things. And it's made a massive change in their staff morale, which is great to see. And as I say, we won lots of awards through this toolkit. So that's an overview of what it is. The sort of organizations we work with in AI are exactly the same as those we work with on CRM, on CPD, on events, and on websites. So it's Royal Colleges, chartered bodies, some regulators in there like RCVS as well, trade associations, trade unions. So almost all of our audience fits into those categories. So if you want to know more, by all means, do contact. And with that, I'm going to pass over to Chris, who's going to talk about, going to build upon the different elements of Copilot that Jeremy ran through and show you what you can do with each of those elements.
Thanks a lot, Steve. So I'll share my screen in a second, but I thought I'd just set the scene and a bit of an agenda for what I'd like to show as part of the demo. So we're going to be looking really at two tools within the Copilot tech stack that Jeremy's made reference to already. So Microsoft 365 Copilot, so this is the Copilot that lives within your apps, and also what most of you probably have access to if you've used Copilot. Then we're going to move over into Copilot Studio, where we're going to take it up a notch. And I thought that it would be good to go through kind of a use case, one particular use case that we can weave through the entire demo. And for that scenario, we're going to look at a regulatory body, and we're going to go through queries to a document and helping the public and helping users and staff to understand the contents of that guidance document. And I chose that because, while not all of you may be regulatory bodies, I think there's a common theme that works there around organizational knowledge and the need to answer questions, help our members and things like that. So where I'm going to question a document, you can also think of things like membership upgrade paths, CPD training, all of those kinds of things that you have the knowledge for internally and you want to share that with the world. So to do this, we're going to have a look very quickly at some of the out-the-box functionality available in Code within M365. Then we're going to build a custom agent. So you're going to build a new assistant that has specific prompts and knowledge. Then we're going to take that up a notch by moving into Copilot Studio, and we're going to enhance that agent, give it some new knowledge, give it some actions that it can do. And then we're going to go look into a bit of automation around that. So we're going to have an automated email agent, and then finally a public facing agent as well. So I'm going to share my screen and you should see my Outlook. So within Outlook and within Office 365, you're going to see this icon up in the right-hand side pop up quite often. And if I just click on that, this is within Outlook. So it's very specific Outlook type tasks, things like what are my most urgent emails and those kinds of things. And as Jeremy pointed out, you'll find this in almost all of the Office apps at the moment. But I'm going to go over on the left-hand side and I'm going to open up the more generic, want of a better word, Copilot within Office 365 or M365. And from here, we can ask a question. Now, it's very similar to how we might use ChatGPT and things like that. And actually, if you look up in the top right, you can see that you can use GPT-5 as well. So a lot of the same functionality exists. But I'm going to ask, let's say, help me to prepare for the webinar this morning. And I'm not really telling it more than that. I'm just asking it to give me a bit of preparation around the webinar. And what it's going to do is going to look through my graph data. So within Microsoft, I'm not telling it which webinar, I'm not giving it any more information. And it can go in there and it can find the slide deck that I need. It can tell me who's set this up and can give me some information around that. From there, I can then ask some follow-up questions, things like help me to prepare the demo, what sort of topics should I be covering, and those sort of things. And I'll go into a lot of detail. So it's really useful. It's quite generic in terms of its answers, but because it has all of our organizational knowledge from within SharePoint, it's able to find information quite quickly. If I had to toggle GPT-5 on up in the top right-hand side, I won't do it now because it thinks a little bit longer, but if I go over to the exact same chat that I asked this morning, you can see that it went through a reasoning for 80 seconds, and then it popped up saying, oh, great timing, Chris, you have 30 minutes left before the kickoff, and then it starts to go into a lot more detail in terms of how I can prepare for this webinar. So using GPT-5 is going to give you a much better experience, but it's also going to go and do reasoning and thinking. So if I expand that, you can see it went on for 80 seconds, which is not too long for a webinar. We don't want to sit watching it think for 80 seconds, but I do find it quite interesting to watch it thinking about what it needs to do and building on its own discovery, so to speak, so as it uncovers the slide deck or read that and then come up with additional items after that. So it's really useful in terms of, I don't want to say a ChatGPT replacement, but because it's secure, because it's living within your current tenant, and because it has access to all your SharePoint information, it is really useful. But as Steve mentioned, it's not trained specifically on you. It doesn't necessarily have the right documents. And one of the limitations I found is because it has access to all of your SharePoint information, it can sometimes find old information. So if you have something like a membership benefits that have changed over the years, it might find one from 2018 and start surfacing that information. So what we are also able to do within M365 Copilot is we can create agents. And like Jeremy mentioned, we have Copilot Studio, which is really where we build most of those agents. But we can see that Copilot Studio is starting to weave its way into the rest of the tech stack as well. And from here, we can build out our own assistant where we can give it its our own instructions. So I've built a knowledge article for a fictitious, or hopefully fictitious, regulatory body. I asked Copilot to build this for me. So we have this regulatory guidance. It's a 16-page document, and it runs us through all of the questions that the public might ask. So we want to use this as a knowledge source that we can ask an assistant to give us the answer just around that document. So we can start to train it up a little bit more. So let's just call this that agent. And then what we want to do is we want to be able to give it those knowledge sources. So rather than asking it to trawl through the entire SharePoint, we can give it just the document that it needs. It's going to go and upload that document. And then we can also give it instructions, which is very similar to a prompt that you give ChatGPT. So in summary, what this is asking is read through the documents. So the KB means knowledge base. I want to get the summary answer, any supporting citations, and I want a confidence level around that as well. So we've uploaded that document. We can see it's being prepared at the bottom, which means it's just reading and ingesting all that information. And then let's just say, let's give it descriptions. So help staff Q&A. Cool. And there we can go in and we can create that. So it'll take a couple of seconds to create. We can also test it in the right-hand side to make sure that it's pulling in the right information, that the prompts are working, that it's creating it in the right output. But we can see that agent's now being created for us, and that's going to appear on the left-hand side within Copilot. And we can also share that with other users within the organization as well. So if we have staff that maybe there's a team that are typically answering questions around these documents, then we can share that with them and they can use that as well. But I'm just going to keep it for myself, and let's go over to that agent. So if I go, move back to my Copilot. So there's our agent on the left-hand side. So from here, we can start to ask any sorts of questions that we might have around that. So I'm going to ask one that I know is in there. So what is the definition of imperial outsourcing? So typically, the way I would imagine someone using this is a member of the public sends you an email and you want to then take that question, rather than you trawling through a 200-page document, you pop the question into your assistant, it would then pull out that information. And from here, we can see it's also responded in the way that I've asked it to respond. So it's given me a quick overview, given me the supporting points, and then it's also given me a confidence level. We can then see there's suggested prompts down at the bottom, so we can find out about what a risk assessment template might look like. It should create documents and things for us. And then if we want to, we can also open this up in Word. So if this is a document that we want to prepare, maybe share with the person who sent us that email, we can very quickly pull that information up within Office 365. And again, we have that Copilot in the right-hand side, so we can actually start to expand this document if we want to. And we can even start to, by using the @ symbol, we can flag those assistants that we built and bring in those purpose-built assistants into the rest of our Microsoft applications as well. So just a quick summary on that. Microsoft 365 is quite general in terms of the kinds of questions, the type of knowledge it has, but we can build more specific assistance by giving it certain knowledge sources, giving it certain prompts and things like that as well. But if we want to expand that and make that a bit more functional, we can then move over into Copilot Studio. And Copilot Studio allows us again to build those agents, because there's a lot more capabilities when we build in those assistants. So if I just go over and click on the Create button very quickly, we'll see that there's a whole bunch of different templates and things that are available to us. So some of the things like Dynamics 365 Copilot will sit within here as well. But we can see that there's a whole bunch of templates, and I believe there will be a marketplace coming for this in the future as well. But if I just go over to my assistant list, we can see that we have the Q&A agent. To save time on the demo, I built this a little bit earlier, but we can see that it's using the same knowledge source, and it's also using the same set of instructions. So from in here, I've now built the exact same assistant. The only thing that's different is I can select the different models that I want to use. So this is using 4.1, but there's a couple of improvements that we get from building it within Copilot Studio. And I think one of the big ones is that we now have an expanded options for our knowledge. So in the past, we were using SharePoints and documents, but now we can use things like Salesforce or ServiceNow. So if you have a Salesforce connection, you can go in and create that connection using your credentials and your environment, and you can sign in and automatically surface that information within the application. We can do likewise using things like Dynamics data. So if you're using Dynamics 365, maybe you want to plug into your Dataverse. So that's the underlying database behind Dynamics. Now, if I just search for contacts as an example, we can see that we have our contact information. Just hit the preview, you can see some of the data that would typically come through. And this obviously has a lot of use cases, not just in terms of the use case that we're going through in terms of the regulatory body, but if we have people that are sending us emails, or if we have if we want to get data insights, so asking who are our most at-risk members, or which members are behind on payments, or who would you recommend to upgrade from this membership to that membership, by being able to bring all of that data into Copilot Studio will be really, really useful. The other really nice thing about it is that we can connect to other agents within an agent. So it's a little AI inception, but what this allows us to do is, if we have other assistants that have been built, or if we want to build them on the fly, we can start to pull those in to our one agent. So we can see that these ones that we've created earlier are already present. And a typical use case for something like this would be, again, let's take the regulatory body, but let's say that somebody's asking questions that might be flagged as a bit of a risk. Perhaps we want a risk assessment agent as well that's built within inside the system. And that way we could have an agent that can deal with questions, but if it indicates that there's a risk around it, it might want to escalate it to the risk assessment agent, who has its own specific set of tools and prompts that are going to better enable it to do those assessments for us. And then the final thing that it can do is that if you think of something like ChatGPT or M365 Copilot as a brain, what Copilot Studio allows us to do is to give it arms, enable it to do things for us. And that's what I'll show you in the next assistant. But we're going to do that using tools and triggers. So that's going to kind of wrap up the Q&A type of agent. The next type we want to look at is something that's a little bit more autonomous, something that can do activities for us in the background. And for that, I have an email query agent. And what this agent will allow us to do is watch our Outlook, so that when people are asking questions, it will automatically be able to reply to those emails and give them those answers. And the way it does that is by using things like triggers. So when a new email arrives, and then enable it to use tools as well. So to actually be able to send an email. And all of this is pulled together by what's known as orchestration. So this allows the AI to determine how best to actually act and respond. So if I go over to my Gmail, we can see I've written an email, which is probably actually a bit too long for a demo, but this is quite a complex query that is going to ask for a number of different points around the guidance, around, again, going back to that material outsourcing, looking at sort of contractual clauses and things like that. So it is quite a complex set of questions. I'm going to send that to myself. So I'm going to go to my Outlook, and I could see, sorry, Jeremy, I'm just going to trash yours for 1 second. So this email is going to come through into my inbox in a second, and once it arrives here, my Copilot will then be able to pick that up and start to run with that as well. So I'm just going to give that a second, but while that starts to come through, let's go back over to, okay, well, there's the email that's come through with all of those questions. So let's go back over to our email assistant, and let's just have a look at what's happening. So the first thing is there's a trigger, and if we actually have a look at those, for testing the triggers, you should see that's the one that just came through now at 10:17. So the trigger's been fired. Then it's going to start going through all of those questions. Now, there were about 5 or 6 different questions, so it'll take a little bit longer than normal, and then check it with the documentation. And we can watch that in the background. If we go over to the activity, let's give that a refresh, and we should see a third one pop up in a second. But ultimately, we can watch the activity, and we can watch how it's busy processing this in the background. And if I go over to one that ran a little bit earlier, we can see what it's doing. We can see that it's reading the knowledge sources, and we can even see the rationale behind why it's doing the things that it does. So when AI goes haywire, as it can do during testing, we can look at the rationale, and we can start to better understand what went wrong. If I go over to my activity, we can see that one's just popped through. And if I go over to my email, we could see Dear Bob, and then it's gone through, and for each of those questions, you can see the contract should explicitly grant the right to audit, etc. So it's really done a really good job at looking at each of those different points, checking it out with the documentation. And I haven't given it any templates. I didn't even tell it to address the person by their name. They were just able to do that by looking at the sender, the from address, and things like that. So it's really useful in terms of automating a lot of those processes. I do think, though, from a testing point of view, there might be a bit of apprehension around just letting it go mad and start sending replies on your behalf. And I think one of the things that can help as well is if we go over to our tools and we just type in human in the loop, we can set up triggers that will, or actions, I should say, that allow us to either request information from a human. So if it's not able to answer the question by itself, it can request that information from a human. So it will pop up in your Teams and say, hey, I've got this question I don't know the answer to. Or you are able to actually just tell it to pause and never send the email, so they can draft it and have it already, but then a human will come in and check off all of those emails before they get sent out on your behalf. Cool. So that's automation of those questions. The last thing I want to talk about then is our public-facing assistance. So something that might appear on a website, and again, might be able to guide people through questions like my membership upgrade paths, or what CPD should I take, but we're going to stick with our regulatory guidance for this one. And to do it, I've built an assistant, and you'll notice that this assistant doesn't have any instructions. So I haven't prompted it to do anything. And the way we're going to manage this assistant is by using branches and predefined questions that we're going to allow the user to ask. So if you see down at the bottom, things like, what do you want help with today? Incident reporting, responses, etc. And then we can take this assistant and we can embed it on our website. So if we go over to one of our demo websites, and if we open up this chat, this will then bring in this Copilot agent into our website, and we can see that it's now asking us these questions. So what would you like help with today? Let's say outsourcing and third-party risk. Then it's going to ask, well, what questions are you looking to ask around these things? And from there, we can then guide that user into gathering that information. And this is going to use generative AI to populate these answers. But what's also really important about this assistant, it's given us that information, is that this agent is also plugged into our Dynamics 365, or could be into your other CRM systems as well. But for this one, it's plugged into Dynamics, which means that if I go over into my Dynamics, we could see that we have a chat that has started. So we can monitor this chat if we wanted to, but we can also allow this person to escalate to a human. So if I say, can I talk to a human? It will just confirm that you want this to be escalated, and then we can escalate that into CRM. And if I move over to my CRM, you will see this would then pop up as part of a chat that we can then accept that chat, and then we can actually start to work from a more traditional case management point of view. So a human would be able to pick up, so this assistant can answer what it can, and if it can't get right to conclusion or resolution, we can escalate this into a human who can then pick that up, and we can see we have the whole chat history over here, and we can start chatting back and forth, creating cases, linking this to contacts, etc. I'm going to leave it there. It's just a very quick recap then of what we had a look at. So Microsoft 365 is a really great chat assistant. So if we want to help brainstorm ideas and things like that, and it has all the access to our SharePoint, we then have the ability to create our own more bespoke assistants. Can't do actions necessarily, but it can help us understand documents and be a bit more nuanced than a more generic assistant. And then by moving over into Copilot, we can start to give these assistants arms and legs in the sense of being able to send out emails, update records for us within CRM, and do all sorts of automated triggers in the background. And then you can also make this a front-facing assistant as well. And Steve, I'll hand back over to you.
Lovely. Look, so thanks, Chris, for showing us how the different products can build up and slightly different use cases and so on. So, so to summarize what we've been looking at, I think, obviously there's a big audience. We've got well over 100 people today, which is great to see. So you'll know AI is already transforming membership associations. We're dealing with an awful lot. We're finding that some are very advanced and embracing in the technology, but there's still quite a lot of fear around as well. So what we would advise is, and I'll come on to this a bit more in the next slide, but to start with some basic use cases. So the third line on the screen, don't just use what's out of the box, because it doesn't really work. It's not trained for you. It's not focused on what you want to do. So it won't really do what you want, and it won't do it in the way you want. So instead, try and find some real use cases, and those examples that we had on the cheat GPT sheet, which we'll I know a couple of people have had issues with the form, so apologies, we'll resolve that. But you try and find some use cases and then get a group of people to use those and pilot them and so on, and you'll find that there's good results out of those. But also, Copilot is embedded in a lot of the tools that you already use. So as Chris showed you, it's got some really good direct help that you can do. But for wider uses, you might want to start finding some specific use cases. But the other key is that there's a lot of fear around AI replacing everyone or certain types of people. We run a regular AI working group with our customer base. And one of our customers came up with the idea of it's not really artificial intelligence. It really should stand for assisted intelligence. And that's sort of what I was getting to when I talked about the Fire Industry Association case study and staff morale. What AI was able to do was to take care of about a lot of the research or ideas or the drudgery of manual workarounds and so on, and help a lot of that production side happen, which then liberated people to use their intelligence, to do more creative things and so on. So with the right guidance and the right tools, this actually is a liberating product set that a lot of organizations are embracing now. So what should you be doing from here on in? So there's a whole range of different steps that organizations go through. So a lot are looking at processes and data and permissions and so on. My take on that is a lot of organizations currently are not doing AI because they're worried their data isn't good enough. That's not a precursor. It shouldn't be the absolute stop of you going in AI, because you can do the two in parallel, and you can also use AI to improve your data. So don't worry about data and processes not being perfect before you adopt AI, because you will never, ever adopt AI because your data will never be perfect. So as I say, do the things in parallel. There are certain use cases that don't even need to touch your CRM data, so don't worry about it. We'll work with you to improve that if you want to work with us, or you can do that yourself. But AI can progress in parallel to that as well. Quick wins and use cases, we already identified that. Definitely worthwhile. Find some specific areas that will help you do specific issues that you need to solve, and then your staff will be a lot more comfortable testing those out. There's a lot of talk around governance and ethics, and we had some questions in the chat about security and sharing IP outside the Microsoft or maybe the ChatGPT ecosystem. It's quite simple. If you don't use the free versions, particularly of ChatGPT, if you use the business version of Copilot or ChatGPT, then you basically make sure that it doesn't go outside your organization, and your tools and your products and your IP is not used for training. So you can control that. But if any of your staff are downloading the free version of ChatGPT, stop them, because that is not secure. Your IP will go out of that. So anyway, so there's a whole load of different steps that you can go through. But if you aren't sure what to do or how to do it, then you can quite easily, we'd be delighted to help you. You can reach us, and I'll give you the link to this in a minute, but we do an AI health check and quick wins study. So it's about a half-hour chat, and we can talk you through a number of those preparatory steps as well. It's free of charge, there's no commitment, and we don't bite and plague you with phone calls after that. But we can help you get a long way down the journey. And there are also a lot of tools and collateral that we'll give you links to download. So I'll just answer a couple of quick questions. So this question from Anne Salter. And Anne's asking if everything's set up within these tools will be better if it's all set up well within Microsoft to draw from. That's true to a point, but quite a lot of these tools we can essentially link them through anyway, and you can train them to not absolutely rely on absolutely every piece of data being correct, as I say. The tools that we use, which are mostly Copilot or ChatGPT, we pointed at our CRM, we pointed at our SharePoint, we pointed at other storage areas, and it works very well. So the better your background information is, the better the tools are, but you need to make sure the tools are really good in the first place. So that's good. And there's another question from Anne about AI membership. It sounds like that's probably more of a conversation, but Anne's asking about how well she can see opportunities when the systems are connected and impacting each other, and what small gains we can create with her on interconnected system. So so Anne, I'll drop you a note on that if that helps, because that's exactly the sort of things that we did with the Fire Industry Association. So I'll cover that as well. Right, so quickly moving on, AI resources. So if you go to that URL or scan that QR code, there's a whole range of different tools that you can download there, including surveys that you can send to your staff about where they're spending most of their time and where they think AI might help them. A lot of policies and governance guidelines, as well as cheat sheets and so on. So as I say, download that. Some people have reported a bit of an issue with it for some reason. It's worked for a year, so I don't know what's happened this week. But if you do have problems, then please just email me. I'm at steve.sidey@smartimpact.co.uk, or you can do it at info@smartimpact.co.uk. So those are there. We've also got our 30-minute health check quick wins, as I say, so you can download that from that QR code, and you can basically book a time with one of our consultants and they'll talk to you for half an hour or so to help you identify where AI can really help you and how to start planning for it. And the final thing is we run these once or twice a month. There's another one in December, which is more about Dynamics and Copilot specifically. So if you're a Dynamics user as well, then that's going to be a more advanced version of this. And then we'll be publishing a whole series of different events for next year as well when I get round to it, which is something I've got to do over the next couple of weeks. So that's all we wanted to cover. I hope that was really helpful, and thanks for very many of the kind words people have put in. We will be sending around the recordings of this and the slides. That usually goes out on the Thursday following this Tuesday. But thanks very much for your time, and any questions, by all means, do just contact us. As I say, info@smartimpact.co.uk. Thanks for your time, and hope it's been useful for you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.